the more times I feel like they see their leaders talking to them on video and they can see them physically, visually, right? Then they have a sense of, wow, I truly know my leader. I know my president. I know my, chief HR officer, whoever it may be that's speaking to them. They feel like they know them a lot more.
Yes.
And I just think that's sort of one of those values that you get out of it that, you can't really quantify in a sense, but it's true because then you hear people saying like, oh yeah, I know him. I know that leader really well. And it's like, you know them because you see all these videos of them and you see them talking to you and sharing all these things. So then you feel like you really know that leader and what they're about, how they're leading the organization, the changes they're making, things like that. So I just think it's kind of funny, it's the same thing as when we watch reality stars. We think we know them.
Welcome to Well Said, the podcast where we talk to healthcare leaders to learn how they're using video to better inform, engage, and inspire their audiences. Hi, everybody. It's me, Greg Rossino. I'm your host. Today, our guest comes all the way from the Golden State, where she is the California Region Director of Internal and Employee Communications for Dignity Health. She, of course, is Natasha Shows. Folks, I absolutely loved our conversation. I can't wait for you all to hear it. We talk about the importance of internal communications and how it strengthens leadership, how it builds culture, and how it really is able to put a spotlight on those folks that are doing such great work across hospitals and health systems. Folks, you're gonna love it. Let's go! Natasha, before we begin, thank you so much for joining us. I speak for myself and for the team. It's been great getting to know you over the last couple of years, and so it's a real thrill and honor for you to be on Well Said. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to be a part of it. Let's kick things off by giving the audience an idea for what you're doing with Dignity Health. You have a pretty massive role in terms of leading internal communications across all of California. That's a pretty big state. Can you talk about your day-to-day responsibilities and any kind of major priorities that you have going on right now?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name's Natasha Shows, and I am the Region Director of Internal Communications for Dignity Health. The California region covers 29 hospitals, and my team is responsible for communicating to about 45,000 employees throughout the state of California. I've been in healthcare for almost 20 years, working with large health systems on the marketing and comm side. And this role is really focused on internal comms, employee engagement, really driving the culture, how we speak to our employees, how we communicate with them, how we cascade and share important information that they need to do their jobs every day, and things like that. So my day-to-day is always crazy. You never know what crisis is happening, what big project is coming down from the national team or a region team. Obviously, lots of change management initiatives right now in healthcare. Lots of policy changes across the nation. That has a big impact on us and our employees. And then all those standard HR, IT, finance changes, operational changes that just happen every day when you're part of a large organization. And then sprinkle in a crisis here and there, and those are my days.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
How has it feels like to me, internal communications it was incredibly important 5 years ago during the pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
When everyone was kind of hybrid, everyone was separated.
Yes.
Has internal communications in your mind, has it continued to stay at that level of importance where making sure everyone feels connected and is kind of informed and aligned?
I think so. I think the pandemic really gave or set the stage for communications. And leadership, especially in the healthcare space, realized the value of internal communications. And I think that just has continued. And they really value internal comms more as a strategic partner now.
Yeah.
I think before, a lot of times when there were projects or key things going on, we were sort of brought in a little bit late to the game where they're like, oh my gosh, this thing is changing or this thing is happening. Now, how do we communicate? Where I think now what happens a lot of times is our leaders bring us in a lot earlier. So they bring us into those meetings and the conversations they're having when they are starting to make decisions or trying to figure out which way they're going to go with a project, how they're going to implement it, what's going to be the best way for us to get our employees on board or get them to be ambassadors or, help move the change and, share it down with other frontline staff, things like that. So I think we are seeing now as much more of a strategic and valuable partner in the team. And so we're brought into conversations a lot earlier now. And I think that also helps us do our jobs better because it allows us to have the time to think through how we want to communicate things. What's the best way to communicate it, right? Because one size does not fit all, right? Sometimes something might be more complex and it needs a different type of communication strategy. Sometimes it's super simple, basic. So I think, being involved early on has been really helpful to us as well, because then it also shows, our value and the different ideas and innovations and different creative thinking that we can bring to the table as communicators. So.
And I think that's really important because then what you're doing too is you're setting a precedent, right? I mean, again, not to obviously 2020 changed a lot of things for a lot of people, but I think prior to that, at least in my experience, internal communications didn't feel very necessary. And that's not all, that's not always the case, but it felt like it was always going to be external communications and the brand and reaching the audience. That felt more important than reaching the people that were making that brand come to life.
Exactly.
And so that has always been kind of an interesting thing where nowadays you are seeing transparency from leadership by getting on video, by reaching out to the staff and talking to them about what's going on, what changes are happening. Whereas beforehand, there would just be maybe like a weekly email or a bi-weekly, something along those lines where leadership is there, but you didn't really even know if they wrote it, Yeah. And so that's great to hear that, like, even though some of us have gone back to work and, internal communications is still playing a huge role in kind of helping shape culture, I guess.
Definitely, yes. I think people are realizing how valuable and important it is to communicate to our internal audience. They've just become now one of those key audiences that you think about when you're planning significant changes in your organization or big strategic moves. I think now people are really thinking very thoroughly through about what that looks like for the employees and the staff, right? So
how early do those conversations start when you're thinking about internal communications? I mean, and it depends on what it is, right?
Yeah, it really depends on what it is and what the project is. So I think a lot of times we're probably brought in, maybe the organization makes a decision on something they're going to do, right? They're going to acquire another hospital. They're going to change the operational structure of something, implement, a new medical record system, whatever it may be. And we are usually brought in right at the beginning after they've made those decisions, and they bring in all the stakeholders that need to be involved where there's going to be a change. So I think we are usually brought in fairly early, which I think is great, because then it also allows us to understand what's the background, what's the history, why did the organization make this change? Because understanding the why is so important in communicating and being transparent with your employees. And if we as communicators don't understand the why, then there's no way we can communicate, and distill that information or bring it down to a very easy to understand level for our staff and employees, right? Sometimes it can be something extremely complex, but if we understand it and can distill it and, share a very simple version with our employees, it's going to go a much further and longer way. Because most times that's what you hear from employees. They just want to understand the why. They know there's always constant change. Every organization has changed. Nothing ever stays the same. And the feedback we've always heard is they just want to understand why. Why are we doing this? How's it going to change my job? Is it going to make things better? Is it going to make things a little tougher? Maybe it'll be tough at the beginning, but it'll get better later. They just want to know why and how, and it's simple as that. So if we can communicate that, I think it just helps the organization and helps whatever change you're trying to implement be sustainable and something that is adopted easily, not always happily, but it's adopted and people move forward and move things ahead. So yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, is you can't make everyone happy.
Exactly.
And then you're dealing with, your California region. California is a massive state. I'm sure there's a lot of planning that goes into thinking, okay, here's, do you have to, here's a thought. Like, do you have to shift the messaging based off of like the Sacramento region or the Southern California region, or do you just try to keep things as consistent?
I don't know that it's shifting the message. I think it's more shifting how we deliver the message and working with the leadership team in that market and their leadership style, right? Because every market within California is different. Each of our hospitals is unique.
Right.
I will say each hospital has its own sort of culture and vibe, if that makes sense. And each leadership team has its own culture and vibe, right? You might have some leaders who are just really more informal and, they like to do like funny things, or, they like to throw in jokes into things, right? And you might have some other leaders that are very serious, very, formal and more put together. And so it's not that the message changes, but I think it's just working with those leaders and their leadership styles and helping them and deliver that message, right? Some people are very good on camera, can speak very easily on video, on a podcast, whatever it may be. And then you have others that might be more shy or more introverted, right? And how do you get them to feel comfortable, make them speak to the camera or talk with you as if it's a conversation, because that feels more natural to them, rather than them sitting and talking into a camera saying, these are the 5 things I need you to know, and this is what's happening. And, so it's really just, it's being a people person and understanding those leaders and working with them and helping them to communicate in their own style preference that makes them feel comfortable. Right. Because the last thing you want is somebody to be fake, right?
Yeah.
You have someone talking on video or on camera and it comes across as so cold or so fake, like your employees are going to know that right off the get. Like they're going to see that and be like, that is not my leader. That is, they know when you're being fake and when you're being real and authentic. And so I think that's also part of our job, is to help our leaders, figure out what's the best way for them to communicate. How do they want to communicate, and helping them and guiding them through that. So, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. We see it all the time, where it's just getting people to be comfortable on camera, which is difficult. It is
very difficult.
that a lot of people like to do. And so, so not only are you feeding them this information that they have to understand, but then they have to articulate it in a way on camera where it seems, it's all about transparency. It seems believable. Well, because it is believable.
Yeah,
It is
of
believable.
course. Yeah.
Is that something that you think will continue to evolve? I know that you and your teams, that you all rely on video pretty heavily and podcasts and everything else. Is there training that goes in along along those kind of lines to make sure people are comfortable, or is there something that you guys are doing to ensure that when folks get on camera, when they create these messages, there is that level of transparency and believability and I'm looking for the word here, being authentic when you're delivering this?
I think as far as training, I think it really just is working with our leaders, especially up front at the beginning, showing them how easy it is, how simple video communications can be. And, it's much easier to communicate when you're speaking and talking to somebody rather than trying to put it to paper and writing out a memo, you know what I'm saying? Because you can be your authentic self and you can speak about something the way you want to with the words you typically use, your facial expressions, things like that. And I think that all comes across as being authentic and real. And I think for us, with a lot of our leaders, of course, a lot of times the minute you tell them, hey, we want you to start doing video communications, they freak out a bit and they're like, what? I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to do this. And I always tell them, listen, it's not the same thing as when we put you in a press conference or put you on a camera because you're being interviewed by a news station for something. It's totally something separate and very different. And when you tell them okay, when personally, right, when you watch things on your phone, how many times are you watching a video? I mean, you could be watching a cooking video, you can be watching someone unboxing something, you could watch someone explain how to fix something or do something. And I'm like, every time you watch those videos, those people are it's like just a normal thing they're doing.
Yeah.
They are not scripted. They're not super fancy. It's like most of the times those people are doing it on their iPhone. And this is the same thing here, right? So just think you're recording yourself in that similar fashion. You've seen videos like that, and this is very similar. And it's a way for you as leaders to connect to your employees and your staff, right? I feel like the more times employees see them on video, the better they feel connected and engaged, because it's just the same thing as when you watch a reality TV show and you see someone on TV and you've watched so many episodes, you feel like you know them. You're like, oh, I know this person. If I ran into her at the grocery store, I know all about her life, and that's just from watching them on a silly show, right? So the more times I feel like they see their leaders talking to them on video and they can see them physically, visually, right? Then they have a sense of, wow, I truly know my leader. I know my president. I know my, chief HR officer, whoever it may be that's speaking to them. They feel like they know them a lot more.
Yes.
And I just think that's sort of one of those values that you get out of it that, you can't really quantify in a sense, but it's true because then you hear people saying like, oh yeah, I know him. I know that leader really well. And it's like, you know them because you see all these videos of them and you see them talking to you and sharing all these things. So then you feel like you really know that leader and what they're about, how they're leading the organization, the changes they're making, things like that. So I just think it's kind of funny, it's the same thing as when we watch reality stars. We think we know them.
So yes, So I have a very similar story. It has nothing to do with leaders and stuff like that, but it must have been around 2018 and I'm in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I was getting lunch with some friends and it was 2018, 2017, whatever. Mark Ruffalo walks into where we're eating lunch And I fucked up because he was filming the Avengers movies.
Okay.
He walks in and I go, "Oh, hey, Mark." And he was like, "Hey." But I totally knew him because I love the Avenger movies and I've seen him. And I was like, "Oh, there's Mark Ruffalo." Like, "Hey, Mark."
Yeah.
And he was just like, "Hey," and just kept going. And people were like, "Do you know him?" I was like, "No, he's just in the," but there was that familiarity with,
Yes.
I know who that
I feel like I've seen him so much that he is familiar, and I do know him.
So that's a real thing there, and so yeah. Now just bring that back down to it. Not an Avenger, but the Avengers of these hospitals and health systems where they are the leaders and they're there. One other thing too. I'm sorry, that was a weird flex to bring up.
That's no problem. That's really funny though.
I think one thing too is that's so important and impactful with internal communication specifically is I know that it also can be done externally, but is employee spotlights and highlighting folks that are doing a great job and letting them know that they're appreciated and felt and that's something that I think has gotten stronger again since 2020 as we won't move on to the pandemics. But I think that's one thing too where you talk about how, folks can watch videos on their phone now. Well, if they get a job well done from their boss or from whomever, they can share that video with their family, with their friends. They can watch it over and over again. That means something to them they can hold on to. And I think that's something that's, to your point, something that's so much more valuable than getting an email or getting some kind of a note that you didn't hear the inflection in their voice or see how excited they are to celebrate you. And so, is that something that y'all are doing in Dignity, celebrating people?
We do a lot around certain, we have a variety of different awards that we give for a variety of things. One example I'll talk about is the Daisy Award, which is a nursing award, and it's usually given by patients, to nurses for their wonderful care or something thoughtful, and something that they did. And so a lot of times we'll, do spotlight recognition videos, and sometimes we might even tell a little bit more of that backstory, right, of that individual, that caregiver, just to shine a light and share some of who they are with the rest of the staff. And I'll tell you that we always hear employees love hearing stories about each other, because they all know each other, or, they might have seen each other. Like, I know, this nurse works on that unit. I know this radiology tech is, always in and out of my department, and I see him. And when they hear those stories, or they see their colleagues getting congratulated for amazing work, they also feel very proud. And they also just are so happy, and they love to learn about other people in the organization. Especially sometimes, we'll highlight some, there's always amazing people and amazing stories you find of these employees that are doing things above and beyond in their communities. And when we share those stories, we get so much feedback from employees like, I loved hearing about that nurse and that she, goes into the community and, visits homeless shelters and brings them, shoes that she collects from the hospital, things like that. It's like, they just love hearing those stories. And so I think it's just heartwarming, and it helps to just build your culture. And it helps to your employees feel more connected to the mission of your organization and the work that you're doing, and that the good that you're doing, sometimes it's not always in the walls of the hospital, but it's outside in the communities. And most times our employees live in those communities.
Right.
It's their friends in the communities that are receiving those benefits. Sometimes it's their own families, right, that are being impacted or changed by things that people within our organization are doing. And so I think that's just a beautiful thing. And we always hear they want to hear more employee stories. Like, we constantly hear that. They love the employee stories, which I think is great.
They really are beautiful, and they really are. It's just so, I mean, almost every time when you watch one of those stories, it's hard not to feel a sense of like pride. It's like, I work with that person. You know what I mean? Like, it's best feeling. Yeah. And so I love that. And I love that that's happening. It seems like a lot more, which I think everyone needs good news. Like who's going to say
yes, nobody wants
bad news, right? So that's I think definitely helping everybody. Is there a process you all follow to kind of find who those people are? Is there, because there's a lot of folks that you're overseeing. Is there anything like?
So I think a lot of times, it's like you just hear these stories and they pop up, and we're always like, we know amazing. Sometimes we have to pull it from our leaders because we know there's always amazing things happening in our hospitals, in our communities that people are doing. And I think just a lot of times people they feel like they're doing it they don't want the recognition, right? They're just doing it because it's something they want to do.
Yes.
Whether it's passion or something they care about, and they don't want the recognition, right? And so a lot of times I feel like, we'll hear about it because someone told someone that this person did that, and then a leader finds out about it, and then they share it with us. Oh my gosh, do you know we had this nurse, we had this doctor, we had this, engineer who did this amazing thing. We want to share their story. And so a lot of times that's how things get funneled to us. We also do have something in our organization called Acts of Human Kindness. So every year, people nominate their colleagues for acts of human kindness. And so this year, we just closed our Acts of Human Kindness. California always outperforms all the regions. I think we had maybe 1,200 submissions this year, which is kind of phenomenal. We have to go through all those submissions and pick the winners, which is going to be a tough thing. Every time we read through them, it's like, this is amazing, and then this one is amazing, and then this story is amazing. How do you narrow it down? And so a lot of times we actually go through those stories and use those stories and reach back out to those folks who've nominated their colleagues and try to get a little more information and see how we can use that, how we can share it. Because for us, that is, human kindness is our brand, and it's sharing those stories of human kindness of across the organization and things that our employees are already doing that a lot of times, sometimes they don't even think about it. They do these wonderful things and they don't think that they're doing anything different, but they really are making a difference, or they're really showing that human kindness to someone else. And so that's just a really great way for us to find some of those awesome stories.
I love it. That's awesome. We're running up on time here, so I've got one more question I want to ask you, and this is, I think, one of my favorite questions. I end this. I know the podcast with this question, but essentially, it's where do you see video going? And we can talk about internal video specifically, going in the next 3 to 5 years. And I understand that is like an eternity right now. A day can feel like a year, right? So I'll simplify it. Where do you see, how can video continue to benefit internal communications over the course of the next, I don't know, we'll say 12 to 15 months?
I mean, I really feel like we're just going to see more video. I mean, we are seeing it in our personal lives, on social media. Everything you watch on your phone is a video. I don't know anyone that is really reading anything anymore, right? Anything on your phone, you are watching. It is all video. And I think that seamlessly translates into your workplace, right? We need to be doing that. We need to be communicating more with video because that is what our employees are used to. That is how they are getting information, right? They're watching news clips. They're watching how-to videos. They're watching influencers talk about products, talk about certain places to go and visit. Everything is video. So why are we not following that same algorithm and pattern in the workplace like we should be?
Right.
So I think we're going to see more of it. And I think we're going to see hopefully a better job of integrating video into like an employee app of some sort, right? We, in our organization, we had an employee app. It kind of failed a little bit, didn't work so well. And so now they're re-looking at how to develop it. And I think it's very similar to how we use social, right? You subscribe to the things you want to hear about and know about. You want to see videos. You want to see quick tidbits, highlights, things like that. And so I think we need to move in that direction. And so I think that's where we're going. I think it is going to be slow. Healthcare always moves slow in the industry. We are slow adopters of technology, communications and marketing technologies, not, the medical technologies. We're fast. We adopt those pretty quickly, but the marketing and comms technologies, we're a little bit slower. So I think we're going to definitely see an acceleration in the next few years of us moving towards those tools, platforms, technologies that will help us better communicate and reach our audiences. Yeah.
Well said, Natasha.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, this was the best. Thank you so much. That's Natasha Shows, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. Catch the next episode.